So what exactly is Atropos?
Right, yeah, it's probably a good question to start with for sure. So the idea behind Atropos is that it's going to be the first, in fact, the first ever true procedural survival experience with a completely limitless number of possible experiences that each individual player might go through on any given playthrough or any given time playing the game. It's going to be set in the universe of No Man's Sky, so it's a universe that we're really passionate about. We're all of us in the dev team, we're fans of No Man's Sky and the universe and the lore and the scope and vision of what they've created. So there's going to be a lot here that feels familiar, but it's going to be very much a totally new and different experience. And I think it's going to be quite unexpected for a lot of people when they finally get a chance to see what we've created. So the game takes place on a planet called Atropos. That's going to be one single planet. That's going to be the setting for the entire game. It might be possible for players to escape Atropos. Obviously one of the main goals of the game is to survive and explore the planet, but of course ultimately getting out of the planet and escaping that situation of survival that you're in may well be a valid end goal for many players. And the main sort of concept and the underpinning mechanic behind the game itself is the fact that there are truly going to be a limitless number of possibilities for every individual player in each and every single playthrough of the game. So no two players, no two playthroughs are ever going to be the same. So the things that you experience and the challenges and obstacles that you face, everything that kind of unfolds in the game will be truly different and unique for each player.
So what exactly does it mean to be the first procedural survival game? Right,
okay, yeah, so obviously the procedural survival is kind of a big focus of the game. That's very much kind of the core mechanic behind the game. Of course there will be a lot of other stuff that you can do and enjoy in the game, and every player is going to approach this differently, but for example, if you want to just explore the world, we're trying very hard to really painstakingly create this absolutely incredibly unique and varied visual masterpiece of a planet that will in itself just be hours and hours and hours of entertainment just to see, just to take in and absorb. But of course the survival aspect is what we're really focusing on here, and the procedural survival, so what we actually talk about when we say that, is something we're quite proud of. So as far as we know, this is something that's never really been done in any sort of level of detail before, and we're quite excited to bring this out using our new procedural survival engine, which we're calling the Fate engine. The way that basically works, so I don't want to spoil some of the things that will happen, but basically the concept is that every single event that happens to you in any individual playthrough, there'll be, I guess you'd simplify it in terms of things like events and triggers and outcomes, I guess. So there'll be something will trigger an event in your gameplay. So perhaps when you first wake up on the planet of Atropos, you've crash landed on your ship, you don't know how you've got there, maybe your ship is damaged, possibly repairable. Maybe that's one of the first things you think when you wake up on the planet in your particular playthrough, is that actually it's just the fuel tanks that's been damaged on my ship. If I could find a source of fuel within the game, then maybe I could escape, maybe I could get out of Atropos, maybe I could not only survive but I could get back to where it is that I came from, right? So that would be one particular player's experience. Now other players might not have that experience when they land, but the way that that's decided is all through that procedural engine. So whether or not your ship is repairable, or what aspects of your ship might be damaged, or if you might be injured when you first wake up, the surroundings that you're in, what kind of creatures are around you, are they dangerous, what kind of weather are you going to face, are there going to be storms, natural disasters, all of these kind of things that can happen, all of these events that would trigger at a sort of point within the game. It might be that you're off looking for fuel, maybe you have to go through a forest that's full of dangerous creatures, and an event will happen or a trigger will happen in that forest. Perhaps you'll be attacked by an apex predator, and that's one event that could emerge as you're playing through the game, which would be different for every single player in every single scenario. And each of those events, there'll be a number of ways that you could respond to that. Perhaps you try to fight the creature, perhaps you try to outsmart it, maybe you just run away, maybe you hide, and any action that you take, any reaction that you have to that event that happens in the game is then also going to trigger a new outcome. So maybe you try and fight the creature and you win, and maybe that works for you and that's good and you can kind of progress without too much of a problem. Or maybe killing that predator sparks some sort of problem in the food chain. Maybe that predator has a mother and that wasn't the apex predator, that was just the baby, and now you've got this bigger creature that's going to be hampering your progression through the game, and you have to find a way to adapt to that. maybe if you're looking for fuel, you find fuel. Maybe you find a source, an isotope or something that could be repurposed for fuel in the game world somewhere. You know, you're probably going to have to go through a lot to discover that, and there'll be trials and tribulations through the way. But let's say you do find it. Now you've got to find a way to get it back to the ship, right? You're just this one person, perhaps you're injured depending on how you've come off after your crash landing. So there you are, you've got to try and figure out a way to use your surroundings within the game to try and get that fuel back to the ship. So these are all kinds of survival elements that aren't too unfamiliar to people, you know, things like having to get fuel or repair a ship or fight a predator or overcome your surroundings. But the way all of those will happen and are triggered and will link together in any single playthrough, all of that is determined procedurally. So what event happens to you will be, I guess, luck, or a lack of luck for some people if they're in a particularly dire situation. You'll then obviously do whatever you think to do to try and respond to that, and your response will cause some sort of outcome. And all of that, all of those situations, all of those events, all of the possible outcomes that your reaction can trigger will all be determined procedurally and linked together in a very clean and smooth way to give you it will feel like a purpose-built story for you on every single playthrough, but in fact what's actually happening is that that's going to be purely driven by that procedural engine. So it's going to be quite a unique experience, and you could play the same game, you know, many times and have completely different experiences.
So it sounds like there's a lot going on.
Yes, there will be many challenges throughout the game. All of these kind of obstacles and setbacks for you to overcome. All of that driven through that engine. I think one of the good ideas that was kind of thrown around, and hopefully I'm not spoiling too much, but perhaps on one particular playthrough you've been putting hours and hours into finding resources and being able to repair your ship, and you're finally getting close to being able to do it, and then you're off out gathering food or something, and on your way back there's a meteor shower or a storm or a herd of creatures tramples your ship or something happens, and then that goal that you've been striving for that whole time, you know, everything that you've been working towards, everything that you've been putting your hope into restoring this ship, and then all of a sudden it's gone, you know, something happens and that's no longer an option. And that's the kind of thing that can happen frequently in this game, you know, not just with the ship but with any kind of circumstance, any kind of event that might emerge throughout the gameplay. That's all kind of unknown and unexpected, and I think that's really important to creating a genuine survival feeling to the game.
So why did you choose the No Man's Sky universe?
Right, yeah, so well, I kind of touched on this before, right? So everybody in our studio, I think one of the big reasons is we're huge fans of No Man's Sky and that universe, so we kind of wanted to pay homage to that. But I think more than that, for me personally, when I came up with the idea for Atropos, I think the big thing behind it was I wanted that whenever I've played No Man's Sky, you know, I have that feeling of wonder and exploration and excitement of discovering all of these cool planets, but I've always wondered what would be possible if you put all of that expertise, all of that effort, all of that skill, all of that incredible variety and the beautiful types of you know, biomes and creatures and weather effects, and you kind of pulled all of that resource together to create one mega planet, if you like, you know, one planet that would be so incredibly detailed, so in depth, with such an advanced ecosystem, with such like handcrafted perfection in every element of the environment, that would just make it truly wonderful to explore every inch of a single planet. And I think that's what we kind of wanted to do with Atropos. We wanted to bring all of that feeling and all of that scope and scale and wonder together in one place, and just make that one mega planet and have that really unique experience. So
what about the world of Atropos? What can players expect?
The world, okay, so the world of Atropos. So Atropos is going to be, I really believe that when players get to wake up on the planet and are finally given a chance to explore it, it's going to blow people away. It's I don't want to spoil too much. There's going to be a lot of surprises and a lot of things that people don't expect on the planet of Atropos and in the world and the wildlife. But I guess I can sort of give you a feel for some of the stuff that you might expect as a player going into the game. So you're going to see things like bioluminescent fields. There are going to be vast, dense alien forests and jungles. There are going to be mountain ranges. There are going to be flowing streams, rivers, lakes, expansive oceans with their own ecosystems. They're like throughout all of this, you know, there's going to be all of these different types of regions within the world of Atropos. The actual planet itself is going to be, I think, is approximately 3 times the size of our actual Earth. So the scale of this planet is quite massive, especially when you think about the level of detail that every inch of that planet is going to have crafted upon it. So yeah, I think it's going to be quite cool. You know, you're going to have caves, you know, you're going to have these beautiful, breathtaking vistas, if you like, whenever you're sort of exploring, and you might come up to a clearing in a forest, for example. So it's not just going to be, you won't come to a forest and there's trees everywhere and that's kind of it. It's going to be a very much unique and handcrafted experience in that sense. So it's going to be this beautiful, fully realized sci-fi world that's just teeming with life and detail. And it's not just the environments too. So I think I mentioned the ecosystems there, but there are going to be literally there are going to be thousands and thousands of different types of creature that you can find throughout the entire planet, and that will be different depending on where you are, and some of that will change depending on the procedural generation. So some of that will be dependent on your playthrough, where you wake up, what luck you happen to have with the types of creatures that are around you at the time. But yeah, it's going to be a joy to behold, you know. Just to explore the game would be a worthy experience in itself, but of course the survival element on top of that just kind of brings it to the next level.
And why did you pick Atropos for the name?
So the name Atropos, I can't take credit for that. That was actually one of our lead artists that came up with the idea for the name Atropos, and it just fit so perfectly with the idea and the concept and what we were trying to achieve with the game. So Stoyan, the lead concept artist, kind of suggested that after we'd been speaking about the Fate engine and the procedural survival aspect of the gameplay, that kind of idea behind it, that every single player will have their own fate, if you like, when you play the game, and that's going to change based on what the engine decides. So your fate is in the hands of that procedural engine in every single playthrough. And Atropos, so it's actually going back to Greek mythology. So she was actually one of the Moirai goddesses of fate. So there were sort of 3 fates as they were known back then, and she was essentially the one that was known as the inevitable. She would decide the mechanism for any mortal's death by cutting their thread, their life thread, and altering their fate at a whim. And that's kind of where it came in, obviously, with the idea of the gameplay and the survival aspects being procedurally generated, and a player's fate being different on every single playthrough, and also unexpected, you know, being able to change at a whim. So you've almost got the fate engine acting as this goddess of fate for the player within the game.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to people before we end the interview?
What would I say? That's a tough one. You know, we're about to show our game to the world, you know, for the first time. It's something that we've worked on for a long time, and we're excited about it. You know, we're passionate about it. We believe that we've created something that hopefully, you know, people out there are gonna enjoy, and that's quite a scary feeling. So I guess I would say, yeah, I mean, we've worked incredibly hard to try and bring you this really unique and different experience, and hopefully one that you will enjoy. So yeah, you know, take your time with the game. Try to explore as much as you can and understand the variety and the scope of the project itself. So, you know, I know there'll be, you know, people will play the game in the way that they want to play the game, and I'm sure there will be some people that kind of storm through it in a single playthrough, and are really smart survival people, you know, and they'll kind of go through and they'll play it with that kind of hardcore mentality, and they might finish the game or finish a particular playthrough and then be done with it. And I guess the only thing I would say is, you know, if that it gives you enjoyment, and that's it, you know, that's what you want to do, then I don't want to take away from that. But I guess our hope would be that players really take the time to appreciate and experience the limitless possibility that this game offers. You know, the fact that every single playthrough would be completely unique and will be completely unique for every player, but not just for every player, but for every playthrough as well. So if you were to play the game 100, 200, 300, 400 times, it would be a completely different experience every single time. So yeah, I really hope that's something that people are as excited about as we are, and I hope that comes across well and people enjoy that. But yeah, thank you to anyone that's been supporting us in the work that we do, and I hope it I hope it excites you as much as it does us.
Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing the game when it's complete.
Thank you very much. No, it's been nice to get out of the crunch for a while and actually speak to somebody and have a conversation. So yeah, thank you very much for having me on.